There's a kind of quiet only small towns understand. The kind where the loudest noise after 9 p.m. is the wind slipping past a cedar fence and the local grocery store closes early not because it has to, but because everyone already went home. That was my life in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, and honestly, I liked it that way. Predictable, boring, safe. I'm Jade Caldwell, 33 years old, librarian at Dalton High School for the past 9 years, an unofficial guardian of silence in both literature and life. You could say I'm the kind of woman who finds comfort in categorizing chaos, alphabetically, of course. My apartment sits above a quaint little flower shop owned by a retired couple who believe peonies cure heartbreak. Maybe they're right. I've never had my heart broken, at least not romantically. But the story I'm about to tell, it taught me that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. It often blooms in the soil closest to home. My daily routine was blissfully uneventful. Morning tea with oat milk, a walk through the foggy harbor street, checking in the same overdue books from the same students who swear they just forgot, and an hour of cataloging donations that smelled like someone's attic and someone else's regrets. But then came the phone call, not the one with the shocking news. That came later. This one was from my mother, a woman who has mastered the art of speaking like she's reading from a motivational pillow. "Sweetheart," she cooed over the line, "can you come to Sunday dinner? Your sister has the most exciting news. Tessa, my younger sister by 6 years, yet somehow decades older in drama, the family darling, the one who dropped out of college to heal energy wounds and now peddled kombucha kits on Instagram like they were the cure for capitalism. I knew whatever her news was, it wouldn't just stay hers. But I went anyway, because family and guilt, and maybe some deeply buried masochistic curiosity. That Sunday, our parents' house smelled like rosemary chicken and expectations. Tessa had decorated the dining table with crystals to raise the vibration which only raised my eyebrows. She launched into her pitch before the salad hit the table. "A wellness retreat," she said, eyes sparkling like a girl who just discovered mood boards. "In British Columbia. It's called Relief Like Relief, but with leaves." She paused for dramatic effect which was lost on the chicken. "I've got the vision, the passion, the property. I just need some startup help." That's when every eye turned to me, like I was the designated family bank with 0 interest rates and infinite patience. Old school wisdom says, when everyone at the table goes quiet, you're either the dinner or the dessert. I'm sorry I laughed, stabbing a carrot with extra enthusiasm. Did I miss the part where I won the lottery? There was a pause. Tessa looked confused, like she'd rehearsed a different script. My father cleared his throat. My mother did that thing where she blinked too much, and I shrugged it off, thinking that was the end of it. Odd fact of the day. In ancient Rome, librarians had legal authority to fine people for stealing scrolls. I wish I had that kind of power now. I left that dinner with a tight smile and a looser sense of peace. I figured I'd dodged a bullet, but sometimes the bullet doesn't miss. It just takes a detour. Because a week later, I would walk into the bank for a routine question about my account and find out that someone had already been there. With my name, my signature, my life. But I'll get to that. For now, I'll leave you with a whisper of advice. Be careful with the people who say, we're family after all. Sometimes that's just the bait. There's a saying I once read in a book that stuck with me. Some dreams are so loud they drown out common sense. I didn't know who said it, probably some underpaid poet from the 1800s, but I should have stitched it on a pillow and mailed it to my sister. Tessa Caldwell wasn't evil. Let's make that clear. She was just relentlessly optimistic in a way that steamrolled logic. The kind of person who believed the universe would always catch her because someone else was usually laying down the net. After our awkward Sunday dinner, I didn't hear much from her for a few days. That alone should have raised red flags. Tessa not texting at least one selfie a day was like the sun forgetting to rise. Then on Thursday, I got a voicemail. "Hey, Jaad! Just finalizing a few things for Relief. I'm so grateful for your support. I know this is going to change both of our lives. Talk soon. Support both of our lives. I listened to that voicemail 3 times on the walk home, each time getting more irritated than the last. I wasn't supporting anything. I hadn't signed a thing. I hadn't even said good luck. I called her back. She didn't pick up. I texted, left a voice note. Nothing. On Saturday morning, I stopped by my bank to ask about a minor discrepancy in my checking account. It was one of those rainy mornings where everything feels slightly delayed, drips from umbrellas, polite smiles from tellers, the buzz of fluorescent lights trying to be warmer than they were. I handed my ID to Brenda, the woman behind the desk who smelled faintly of lavender gum and probably owned 17 cats. She typed for a moment, then paused. Ms. Caldwell, just confirming you're here about the second loan application. Second, I blinked. What first one? Brenda's fingers hovered. It was submitted online last week, approved for review, under your name and SIN. I laughed. Actually laughed. That kind of dry, startled chuckle you let out when someone tells you something so absurd your brain stalls. Sorry, I said, trying to sound calm. That's not possible. I haven't applied for any loan. She turned the monitor slightly toward me, and there it was. Loan amount $28,000 applicant. Jade Caldwell. Purpose, small business startup description, relief, wellness, and mindfulness retreat. I stared at the screen so long that my eyes dried out. Everything was correct. My address, my birthday, my social insurance number, even my signature neatly scanned, identical to the one on my driver's license. It felt like seeing a reflection wink at you. I remember hearing my own voice say I need a copy of this. Calm, polite, like I was asking for a library printout and not evidence of identity theft. Fun fact, Canada doesn't have a centralized fraud department. Each bank handles these things differently, but they do take it seriously. Brenda nodded, printed the details, and even highlighted the IP address of the submission. We'll put a hold on this, of course, she said gently. You'll need to file a formal fraud report. Outside, the rain had slowed to a mist. The world looked exactly the same, which felt offensive. How could everything continue like nothing had happened? Old school wisdom says, you don't realize how much of your life runs on trust until someone forges your name. That night, I sat in my tiny kitchen with a mug of chamomile tea I didn't drink, staring at the printout. The handwriting in the business plan section was unmistakably Tessa's. Loopy, overconfident, and riddled with phrases like aligned synergy and spiritual ROI. I paced for 20 minutes. Then I called her. Tessa. My voice was low. Did you use my name to apply for a loan? Silence. Then cheerful denial. What? No. I might have put in a placeholder like just for structure, but I never submitted anything. That must be a mistake. A mistake that knows my SIN and forged my signature. Another pause. Then came the tears. Not hers yet, but the kind she conjured from others. Jade, I just thought, you have good credit, and I didn't think you'd mind. It's not like I was stealing it. We're family. And this retreat, it's going to change lives. I gripped the counter. You forged my name on a legal document. That's not a favor. That's fraud. And then came the phrase that still stings. You always said you wanted to do something meaningful. Well, here it is. You're part of something bigger now. Odd fact, cows have best friends and get stressed when they're separated. Humans too, apparently, except in our case, it was trust I got separated from. I ended the call, and for the first time in years, I didn't file anything neatly away. I left the printouts on the table like a wound you have to look at to understand how deep it runs. If you've ever been lied to by someone you love, you know it doesn't feel like anger at first. It feels like silence, like your brain just stepped outside for air and forgot to come back in. Sunday came again, as it always did in Lunenburg, slow gray and smelling faintly of sea salt and chimney smoke. Normally, I'd spend it curled on my worn leather chair with a paperback and a tea I'd reheat 3 times. But not this time. This time, I went back to my parents' house with a folder. Mom opened the door with her usual flair in a turtleneck, 2 shades too bright for the mood, and that voice dripping with tension disguised as warmth. Jade, Come in, honey. We were just talking about. Save it, I said, stepping inside. Where's Tessa? She was in the kitchen, of course, plating kale bites no one had asked for. She looked up, smiled, and tried that chirpy tone she used when she was about to gaslight me into watering her plants for 3 weeks. But I beat her to it. You filled out a loan application in my name, I said, flatly pulling the printed forms from my bag. Not just a placeholder, not just support. This is identity theft. Dad looked up from the newspaper like someone had turned off the jazz. What are you talking about? I held up the folder. You want to explain the IP address, the business plan in Tessa's handwriting, or maybe the digital signature that surprise matches mine perfectly. Tessa tried to grab the papers. I pulled them back. She scoffed. Okay, calm down. It's not that serious. You're being dramatic. Old school wisdom says, if someone breaks your fence and tells you it was a shortcut, they'll probably steal your car next. You used my legal information to commit fraud. I said it, voice low but steady. Do you even understand how serious that is? Mom jumped in, ever the emotional referee. Sweetheart Tessa was just trying to follow her dream. She didn't mean any harm, and let's be honest, you're not exactly using your credit for anything important. I blinked. So now it's a matter of efficiency. Tessa folded her arms. You work in a school library, Jade. You make what, $42,000 a year. I'm trying to build something that helps people. You should want to be part of that. That line hit me like ice down the spine. The implication that my quiet, stable life was less valuable than her chaotic ambition. That my role was to be the stepping stone for her spotlight. I looked at my father, who said nothing, just frowned behind his bifocals. You knew, I whispered. Both of you knew. Silence. My mother looked away. My dad cleared his throat like he wanted to object but couldn't find a sentence that wasn't a confession. I backed away slowly. I don't remember putting the folder back in my bag. I only remember the sound of my boots on their hardwood floor, each step echoing like a clock winding down. As I reached the door, Tessa called after me. Come on, Jade, don't ruin this for me. I turned and smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind you wear when the storm's already coming and you're done pretending it won't rain. You already ruined it, I said. I'm just cleaning up after you. Odd fact. The term gaslighting comes from a 1938 play where a man tries to make his wife think she's losing her mind by dimming the gas lights and pretending nothing changed. Fitting, isn't it? Back in my apartment, I poured a cup of tea, left it untouched, and sat down at my laptop. I opened 3 tabs. The fraud reporting portal for my bank, a lawyer's website specializing in family financial abuse, and my old journal, where I started a new entry titled The Day They Forgot I Was the Wrong Sister to Mess With. Old school wisdom says revenge is a dish best served cold, but I disagree. Revenge is best served quiet. The colder it is, the less anyone sees the steam. There's a strange calm that settles over you once you've been betrayed deeply enough. Not the angry kind, the hot, stormy kind, but the cold, detached realization that the people you trusted just casually threw you under a bus and called it a family favor. It's the kind of calm that makes you think clearly. Dangerous kind of clarity. By Monday morning, I had already filed the official fraud complaint. The bank was cooperating. They froze the application, flagged the account, and assigned a fraud specialist named Daryl, who spoke like he did yoga between customer calls. I wasn't looking to destroy my sister. I wasn't even looking for revenge yet. What I wanted was simple my name back, my privacy, my peace, the silence I used to find between library shelves. But Tessa didn't see it that way. She showed up at my apartment that afternoon, unannounced, wearing oversized sunglasses and carrying a plastic bag of gluten-free lemon scones like a peace offering from the planet Delusional. You didn't have to take it this far, she said the second I opened the door. We could have handled this in the family. You mean in secret, I corrected. She shrugged, brushing past me like she lived there. Jade, this whole thing is bigger than you think. I already told people the retreat was happening. Investors, clients. I even paid a marketing guy in Calgary, using my identity. It's not like that. You weren't doing anything with it. her voice pitched high like whining was a form of persuasion. Old school wisdom says, don't loan what you can't afford to lose, including your trust. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I walked over to the table, picked up the folder, and laid it between us. These are the statements I sent to the bank, I said. The evidence, the signature comparisons, the text you sent me. Her face dropped, the kind of drop that happens when someone realizes they underestimated the quiet one. You're not serious, she whispered. I just looked at her. You'd get me in trouble, me, your sister. You didn't seem too worried about me when you typed in my SIN number. She folded her arms, her tone shifting. Mom and Dad said you'd overreact, that you were always too sensitive. You should be grateful someone finally made your life interesting. I almost laughed. The audacity was like a perfume she wore. Interesting, I repeated. That's what this is to you. Not criminal, not reckless, just interesting. Jade, please. I can make this right. I'll pull out. We'll cancel the launch. Just don't go legal on me. Please. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry she did it. She was sorry she got caught. Odd fact, in Canada, it's a federal offense to fraudulently apply for credit in someone else's name, up to 10 years in prison. Not that Tessa knew that or cared. I sighed and walked to the door, holding it open. You need to leave. What about the retreat? She asked, her voice small now. What about our family? That's not a retreat, Tessa, I said. It's a scam in a sundress. She stood there for a second, stunned. Then she left. No goodbye. Just the hollow clatter of her boots on the stairs, like the sound of a bridge burning in slow motion. Later that night, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Jade, I don't know what you're thinking, but tearing your sister down isn't the answer. We're a family. We support each other. Call me back, please. Old school wisdom. Again, guilt is a tool and family knows exactly how to sharpen it. But here's the thing about guilt. It only works if you let it. I opened my laptop and wrote 3 emails. One to my lawyer, one to the bank, and one to a local journalist who'd once interviewed me about a banned books display I did for Banned Books Week. She owed me a favor. It wasn't just about protecting myself now. It was about drawing a line in the sand with permanent ink. Tessa had tried to use me, and now she learned that even the quiet ones carry pens, and sometimes they write endings. The funny thing about being underestimated is once it happens enough times, you start to enjoy it. There's power in being the person no one expects to fight back. Power in silence. Power in subtlety. For most of my life, I played the role, the good daughter, the stable sister, the one who shows up with baked goods and keeps her voice soft. But under that calm exterior, there's a librarian's mind, a detailed, quietly meticulous mind that notices everything and forgets nothing. And now it was awake. I spent that week doing what Tessa never thought I'd do, nothing. Or at least that's what it looked like on the surface. I went to work, smiled at students, shelved books, recommended titles about self-respect and legal justice to anyone who asked. I even hosted a poetry club meeting where I read a piece titled Borrowed Names Don't Belong in Contracts. No one batted an eye. But behind the scenes, I was building a paper trail strong enough to wrap around a mountain. Emails, screenshots, voicemails, bank correspondences, all neatly labeled in folders named Relief Fraud. I met with a lawyer, Ms. Shannon Barker. Sharp eyes, tighter bun. She called Tessa's stunt a textbook case of family-based identity abuse and advised me to stay civil while building a rope. I nodded. I'd already started braiding. Meanwhile, the marketing guy from Calgary emailed me. Turns out Tessa had told him I was the silent investor. He wanted to know when we'd be releasing our brand video. I responded with a short message. Please remove my name and likeness from any material related to Relief. Any further use will be considered defamation and reported accordingly. He replied within 10 minutes, understood. Old school wisdom says, the best revenge doesn't scream. It whispers so low they can hear it in their bones. By Friday, I had what I needed. And it was time to do the most librarian thing imaginable, send a very polite, extremely professional takedown notice. The retreat's website, the Eventbrite page, the Instagram account, it all vanished in under 48 hours. The business froze, suspended by the bank after I filed the official report. Tessa hadn't even gotten a chance to host her first Sacred Forest awakening. She called twice, texted 8 times. The last one said, "You don't get it. You're just bitter because you never take risks." Odd fact, the longest sentence ever published in literature is 823 words. Tessa was well on her way to beating that with her guilt rants. I didn't respond. That was the revenge. But the real moment came when my parents invited me over again. They didn't say why, just that we needed to talk. So I went, out of curiosity more than hope. My dad sat in his recliner, hands folded like he was about to deliver a eulogy. My mom was already crying, dabbing her eyes like she'd lost a pet. Tessa stood by the window, arms crossed, mascara a little smudged for dramatic effect. "We know what you did," my mom said, voice trembling. "You ruined her business. You made a private family mistake public." I sat down calmly. "I reported a crime." "You should have come to us," she whispered. "I did. You chose a scam over your own daughter's identity." Dad finally spoke, his voice brittle. "She's your sister, and I'm your daughter. Funny how that only matters when you need something." Tessa finally snapped. "You think you're better than everyone just because you read books and drink tea like some wannabe Jane Austen?" I blinked. Jane Austen never committed fraud. She stomped out. My parents didn't stop her, and for once I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. Odd fact, honey never spoils. Even after thousands of years, it's still edible. That day I realized forgiveness might work the same way. It just takes time and the right seal. I left their house without another word. Walked home slowly the way I used to as a kid, taking the long way past the harbor. And I smiled, because for the first time in a long while my name was mine again. There's something oddly satisfying about taking down a scam using nothing but emails, documentation, and a steady Wi-Fi connection. No shouting, no dramatic confrontations in parking lots. Just order, quiet justice. It's not flashy, but it lasts. After freezing Tessa's business, I didn't hear from her for a while. Maybe she finally realized the damage she caused. Or maybe her marketing guru, her yoga-certified accountant, and her borrowed social media team had all pulled out like ships leaving a sinking dock. I wasn't celebrating. Not exactly. But I'll admit I found a quiet thrill in watching the wheels of consequence turn without needing to push them. That week, I received a letter from the bank confirming the fraud complaint was officially closed in my favor. The loan was canceled, my credit untouched, my record intact. I framed the letter, not out of spite, out of principle. Old school wisdom says, keep your receipts. They age better than apologies. At school, things were wonderfully normal. I helped a student find a book on marine biology and lent another one a copy of The Outsiders. When they asked if it was based on real life, I smiled and said, more than you think. But then 3 days later, a certified letter arrived at my apartment. It was from a law office I didn't recognize. The envelope was thick, the font expensive. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, a formal cease and desist letter from Tessa, claiming I damaged her business prospects publicly, defamed her character, and contributed to emotional distress. She was threatening a civil suit unless I made a formal public apology and agreed to cover her lost startup costs. I read it 3 times, laughed once, then I walked downstairs, showed it to Mr. Boudreau the florist, and he handed me a cinnamon scone like it was medicine. You want me to press this into the paper so it smells like failure, he offered. I thanked him, went back upstairs, and forwarded the letter to Shannon, my lawyer. Her response, tell your sister I'll see her in court. Bring snacks. Odd fact, the average lawsuit in Canada takes 20 to 24 months to process, but that's only if it gets to court. Shannon sent back a letter of her own 10 pages dense as a law textbook, listing every instance of forged information, misuse of personal data, and unauthorized financial application tied to Tessa's name. The kicker. She included the marketing material Tessa had sent to clients using my photo, cropped from an old Christmas card, and labeled it as unauthorized likeness usage. Tessa didn't respond. No follow-up letter, no court summons, just silence. That's the thing about people like her. They push boundaries until they hit steel. Then they back away like they never meant to knock. But the damage was already done. My parents stopped calling. Maybe they were embarrassed, or maybe they were waiting for me to fix things the way I always had. Only this time I didn't. I didn't explain. I didn't justify. I didn't chase after their understanding like a child begging for attention. Old school wisdom. Some doors are meant to stay closed, even if you love who's on the other side. Instead, I poured my energy into something else. I started a blog, The Quiet Page, a little corner of the internet where I wrote about financial literacy, personal boundaries, and how to spot emotional manipulation dressed up as spiritual ambition. It wasn't viral, it wasn't flashy, but it was mine, and it helped people. Students began asking me questions about student loans and credit cards. A few teachers stopped by my office to chat about protecting their identities. I even gave a presentation at a community center titled How to Say No Without Burning Down the House, Unless You Have to. And slowly I felt the tension in my chest unwind. There's an old library term, weeding. It means removing books that no longer serve, that take up space without adding value. Books that are damaged beyond repair. It doesn't mean you hate those books. It just means the shelf needs room for better ones. That's what I was doing now, weeding my life, making space. Tessa had wanted to start a business. She just didn't care who she trampled to do it. But me, I was building something too. It didn't come with brochures or hashtags, just peace, boundaries, and the steady comfort of knowing no one could use my name again without earning it. Truth has a strange echo. It doesn't always come back right away, and sometimes it returns through the mouths of others, unexpected, quiet, and a little late. A month after the cease and desist showdown, I was shelving books in the biography section when Mrs. Lockhart, our school's longtime drama teacher, peeked into the library and said I read your blog. Just like that. No fanfare. I smiled, unsure which part. She held up her phone, the one about borrowed trust. My brother used my identity to open 5 credit cards in college. I never told anyone until now. That conversation stayed with me all day. Maybe it was validation, maybe it was relief. But for the first time in this whole mess, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt understood. And then came the twist I didn't expect. Tessa was arrested. I didn't hear it from her. Of course not. I heard it from Daryl, the yoga-voiced fraud investigator, who called to update me on the final status of my complaint. Just so you're aware, he said gently, Ms. Caldwell was flagged during an unrelated investigation into forged applications. She used a similar pattern with 2 other names. One of them belonged to an ex-boyfriend's sister. I blinked, stunned. Are you saying this wasn't her first time? Let's just say you weren't the only silent investor she invented. He paused. She won't be charged under your case. Yours helped trigger it. But the others? They had stronger evidence. One had a recorded call. Old school wisdom says, if someone shows you who they are, don't keep asking for a different version. I sat there in the library after that call, watching students drift between tables, some working, some whispering, all unaware that behind my calm face, a storm had finally passed. Later that week, my mom showed up at my door. She didn't call first, just knocked twice soft like she wasn't sure she was welcome. I opened the door. She looked older somehow. Her cardigan was buttoned wrong. I brought muffins, she said. I didn't move. She stepped in without being invited, placed the muffins on the table like a peace treaty made of blueberries. I'm sorry. It hung in the air for a moment, like steam off fresh tea. I should have protected you, she continued. I told myself it was just Tessa being dramatic, that you'd be okay. You've always been okay, but that wasn't fair, and it wasn't true. I nodded. No, it wasn't. She looked around my apartment. It's quiet here. That's the point. Odd fact. The phrase blood is thicker than water is often misquoted. The original version, the blood of the covenant, is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning chosen bonds are stronger than family ties. My mother sat on the edge of the couch. She didn't touch the tea I poured, Just looked down at her hands folded like old maps. She might go to prison, she whispered. I know. I don't want her to. I don't either, I said honestly. But she did this. She nodded slowly. I just didn't want to lose both my daughters. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw it, the quiet fear, the regret, the way a parent can love deeply but still fail loudly. I'm not gone, I said gently, but I'm not coming back to who I was either. She nodded, stood, smoothed her sleeves. I'll leave the muffins. I walked her to the door, watched her go, and for the first time didn't feel like I needed her approval to breathe. Later that night, I wrote one last post on the quiet page. Rebuilding doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means choosing what stays. Tessa had been reckless. My parents had been blind. But me, I'd been silent long enough. And silence, once broken, becomes a kind of music. The library was especially quiet that Wednesday. Rain tapped at the windows like soft piano keys, and the overhead lights cast a gentle amber glow across the checkout counter. It smelled faintly of old pages and lemon cleaner, the scent of calm of closure. That afternoon, a student returned a book late and apologized like he'd broken a law. I smiled, waved it off, and whispered, "Better late than never." He grinned like I'd pardoned a war crime. Life had fallen back into its rhythm, but it wasn't the same rhythm. It was slower, softer, more intentional. Because here's the truth, I had lost something. The illusion of safety within my own family. The idea that love and loyalty always go hand in hand. That wounds won't come from the people holding your hand. But I'd gained something too. Something steadier. Boundaries, strength, and most surprising of all, peace. Old school wisdom says peace isn't the absence of storms. It's the ability to hold an umbrella while they pass. Tessa pled guilty in a deferred agreement. She wouldn't serve time if she completed financial counseling community service and stayed away from applying for credit in anyone else's name for 5 years. A slap on the wrist, maybe, but enough of a warning shot that she wouldn't be using anyone else's identity as scaffolding for her next vision. My parents drifted in and out like low tide. My mother sent the occasional thinking of you message. My father didn't say much at all, and that was okay. I didn't need a reconciliation speech. I needed air, and I'd found it in my own space on my own terms. Odd fact, libraries don't just preserve books. They preserve community trust. The idea that some places still run on honesty and a mutual understanding to care for what you borrow. That's what I became, my own librarian of boundaries. And no, you can't check me out unless I say so. The final thing I did, I started a quiet savings account, just for me, tucked away from the noise. It's not much yet, but it's honest. And not a single dollar of it came from guilt or obligation. I also kept the framed letter from the bank on my wall. Above it, a sticky note reads, "Family means never forging a loan application." It makes me laugh every time I see it. If you're still listening, curled up somewhere in the soft dark, wondering if it's ever okay to say no to people you love, let me say it clearly. Yes. Yes, it's okay. Yes, you can love someone and still protect yourself. Yes, you can forgive without forgetting. Yes, you can move on without looking back. You don't owe anyone your peace, especially not the people who treat it like spare change. Some people call what I did revenge. I don't. I call it remembering who I am. And now, I think I'll go make tea. Chamomile, probably. The kind that doesn't ask questions. The rain's still falling outside, and I have a few new books to shelve. One of them's titled How to Be Your Own Hero. Fitting right. So if no one's told you lately, you're not overreacting. You're not being too sensitive. And you're definitely not selfish for protecting your name. Thanks for sitting with me through this. Rest well. Let the storm pass. And never forget your signature is sacred.